Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guests. They are the founders of Embodied Recovery, a holistic mental health and addiction treatment center blending science and ancient wisdom teachings. No other than Mr. Greg Vorst and Mr. Michael Nolan.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, thank you. What
Yeah.
an intro.
Yeah.
Yes, and welcome both of you on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Okay. Yeah, wonderful. This is Greg Vorst here, and I'm delighted to be on the show. I think I'm a therapist at the treatment center. I have my own recovery journey, which primarily was in work of ACA and CODA. And prior to doing that work, I was really more of a spiritual seeker. And I think I realized there was some limitation to my growth and something was still missing. And thankfully, I made it into the recovery rooms. And then I've been helping people as a therapist the last 10 to 12 years now.
And my name is Michael Nolan. And like you had mentioned, Greg and I co-founded Embodied Recovery. I'm also in recovery myself. I got into recovery in, 2005 was maybe my first introduction. Prior to recovery, I wasn't a spiritual seeker as much as a life avoider. And then the consequences of life crashed down upon me over the course of many years. Got into treatment in 2007. And then I've been clean and sober since then, went back to school, started working as an addiction counselor in 2009, 2010. And then Greg and I met in maybe 2017-ish, around there. And we've been working together ever since.
Mr. Greg and Mr. Michael, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more advocacy to come. And today, let's talk about the illness is in the personality. Healing requires a shift on how we are, not just what we do. What led you to realization that illness often stems from personality patterns rather than just a physical causes?
Yeah, what a great question. Well, I can start out with
confrontational topic.
Yeah, I can start out with something. So a number of years ago when I got into the healing arts, I guess this must have been about 20 years ago, I had the privilege of working in a really exceptional holistic health center, which did nutritional counseling and supplements. And I got to do a lot of one-on work with clients that were really struggling and suffering in a lot of ways, that were ill. And I began to see over the years of being there that even though we had the most excellent means of supporting people through nutrition and holistic medical practices, that people, many people weren't getting better, and what was causing them the most distress was not life or circumstances, but their own personality and the way in which it met the world. And I actually saw that in myself as I was counseling them and working with them. So there was just this awareness that there was no one single supplement or magic bullet out there that was going to take away from the deficiencies that that were built into people's character and personality. And so I think that's how that journey began for me, and it made me very interested in psychology, and it made me open to exploring the way that I think about life, because my thinking and my narrative was responsible for a lot of the results I was getting also.
And one of the things that we've also been seeing quite a bit, maybe over the last 4 or 5 years or so, is that people have been in pursuit of spiritual or psychological transformation through the use of psychedelics in particular, and imagining that if they can have these psychedelic experiences, that it would somehow shift their brain chemistry enough to undo the years of dysfunctional living or trauma or abuse, and people can absolutely have some big experiences. But what happens is that when they come down, they come back to themselves. They come back to the personality that was that they left behind on that trip, if you will. And so, the claim that we're making is that for lasting, sustained growth and change and transformation, it requires a willingness to turn inward and start to look at the ways in which I'm responding to life and the ideas that I'm holding and the narratives that I live with day to day.
How would you define the connection between personality and physical health?
Yeah, that's great. Well, so in Taoism, in some ways, it can be viewed that the body, in some ways, is like the physical representation or the expression of what's happening in my psyche and in my mental life. So that would include my personality. And the way that it's often described in psychotherapy and in the rooms of ACA, you hear about this a lot. ACA is a 12-step group. But what they will, what often happens is that the stress and the issues that are in my mind and in my psyche and in my emotional self, they get embodied. They get stored in my body. So my body then takes on the dis-ease and the discomfort of me being me in life, if that makes sense.
Makes
So, and we
sense.
call that psychosomatic stress. It's the stress of the psychological doings and happenings in my mind and in my personality, in some sense, gets downloaded into the body. And then massage therapists would often say something really cute, that the issue is in the tissue. and so the issues that I'm struggling with in my personality and in my life, those really get felt and stored in many cases in the body.
And these are things that you can see. You might have some people in your life that say struggle from anxiety, and you can see it in the way that they show up, and the tension in their shoulders, and the shallow breathing, the rapid breathing, just the general tension that they live with becomes a manifestation of the internal experience that they're having of this anxiety or tension or stress.
Can you share a case where changing one's way of being led to significant health improvements?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. And there's a lot we could say about this case, but just a number of years ago, we had the privilege of having someone in our program that did some really remarkable work. They stayed with us for a significant period of time. And often it's the case when someone stays for a good period of time, that really gives them a chance to develop enough trust for the deeper issues to be resolved. And in this individual's case, there were a lot of somatic complaints, a whole array of them that were really gruesome and difficult. But one of the ones that stood out quite a bit was a diagnosis of lockjaw, for which there was a surgery that was scheduled with a prominent medical establishment. And over the time period of working with this individual, not only could you see that the jaw and the expression and the personality was very locked and very rigid, but you could begin to see little by little that opening and sort of the flowering of that personality. And when they completed treatment, the diagnosis was dropped, and the surgery was also canceled. And that's quite remarkable.
How does our modern lifestyle reinforce personality patterns that make us sick? Can you enlighten us?
Well, boy,
Yeah.
I guess it depends on
Where do you want to start? Right?
Yeah, what would be some of the? I guess if I could speak to what the modern lifestyle might look like, maybe a lifestyle of convenience, always on the go, trying to get as much done in as little time as possible, or maybe a lifestyle of the pursuit of that which feels good and avoidance of that which doesn't feel good. So what we tend to see is, even if people aren't struggling directly with substances like alcohol or other drugs, they're very much compulsive around social media, with sex and love, with shopping, and so these types of behaviors that people are engaging in are used as a mechanism to avoid whatever the reality is that they're not wanting to be with. And so, to say maybe the symptoms of a modern lifestyle, there's certainly a lot that would keep people moving away from a connection to self.
Yeah. And just generally speaking, when people come into treatment, they're struggling to experience being in themselves, that it's that their attention and their faculties have been hijacked. So whether it's through social media or the fast pace of life or the acquisitiveness and the desire to get more, people have in many cases lost that fundamental connection with themselves. And out of that, all types of dis-ease ensue, because the body is giving us cues, life is giving us cues. But if we're not home to receive those messages, then it would be analogous to kind of continuing to drive without oil in the car or something to that effect. So we're not seeing the cues on our dashboard. And generally, the recovery process is to help people come back to themselves and to begin to acknowledge and be in tune with some of those messages that life is giving us.
So one of the most prominent statements, or there's plenty of recovery slogans or cliches, but one would be that I need to work on keeping my side of the street clean. And so, to speak to Greg's point, so much of this work is coming back to self. And so the phrase isn't manage everybody else's side of the street. It's, I really need to begin looking at what's required of me to keep my side of the street clean, to take accountability for my choices, my interpretations, what I say and what I do.
Why do traditional medical approaches often overlook this mind-body personality connection?
Well, I think that modern medical establishments are getting much better at examining these connections, and so we've worked really closely with Mills Peninsula Hospital, Stanford, and they've referred a number of people to our clinic to do that work. Actually, we have one of our team members right now that's been recruited to teach the Sundo practice at Stanford next week, and so we're really excited about that. But I think that it's been very common for medical practitioners to work from a place of diagnosis and treatment of symptoms, and so it's less about treating underlying causes to ensure long-term health, as much as treating the symptoms of certain conditions. And they have a lot of training to make those diagnoses and make those recommendations.
Yeah, and one other thing, just to loop back to the initial question that we got into about personality. I think it's hard. The world hasn't quite awakened to the amount of distress, my judgmentalism or my egotism, or my jealousy or my pride, or any of the qualities that traditionally, like recovery, is helping us to clean up. We don't know when we look through the psychological, like the DSM manual too, it doesn't say cause is, and help us see, or that our for example, our codependence, how much suffering and dis-ease that causes. But in this work, we've certainly discovered that much of the suffering that people experience, that then in turn becomes what's known as dis-ease, really starts in these aspects of our personality that are really calling to be cleaned up and brought into alignment with recovery.
What personality shift have you seen make the biggest difference in healing chronic conditions?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a handful of them there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The personality trait that has led to the biggest impact in someone's health,
Yeah.
you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
Make the
Yeah.
biggest difference in healing chronic conditions.
Yeah. That's an awesome question.
Yeah, there are quite a few of them,
Yeah.
but and Greg might have some other ideas, but we've seen that that when people begin practicing rigorous honesty, a lot of shifts and transformations can occur in their experience of life. It requires a great deal of safety in the container to begin that practice of
Mhm.
honesty. But that can radically change the way that I interact with life when I begin to experience the natural consequences of my honest behaviors. And then when people begin to practice more vulnerability, a willingness to be seen in that truth can create a lot of ease in someone's experience of life and can help to reduce some of that stress and tension. But to have all of that undergirded by a practice is something that we strongly believe in.
Yeah, I would, just to dovetail, I'm going to go back to the practice comment, but so in that too, you could also add humility. So one of the things that we can begin to really learn in early recovery is that even though I may be very bright and have done well in certain avenues in life, I may still be bereft of or unable to perceive what is in my own best interest. So humility becomes something really, really critical, and the willingness to be guided and supported by outside support, by reliable resources. That's a really critical one. And then the other thing I was going to say is this capacity to just keep showing up and practicing daily, because unlike the magic bullet that we want from the medical model, true growth and change is really born with that constancy. I keep showing up, I keep coming back every morning, and I keep practicing until it becomes a way of life. It's not an ephemeral thing. It's something that I need to do day in and day out. And so the primary thing that we see is that people need to really engage in a practice of those virtues that we're naming. And the Sundo practice that we have, the lower diaphragmatic breathing, and the breath work that's in that is a really, really awesome setup for everything that we're talking about.
As a co-founders of Embodied Recovery and Holistic Mental Health and Addiction Treatment, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Oh, that's awesome.
What are our short-term and long-term goals as a treatment center, or as we maybe engage and work with someone that's coming into the program?
Both, if you want to make simplify.
Shoot.
I'm interested for both.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that maybe to speak to the short-term goals that we have when someone's coming into treatment, initially is just to create enough spaciousness in the environment that they can begin to trust the relationships that they're engaging in. Because when people first enter treatment, they're in such a heightened state of arousal. They've experienced so many consequences. Things aren't going well in their life, and yet they've had this moment of clarity, as some call it, or enough willingness to say, I know that something needs to change. I maybe don't know what it is, or I have an idea of what I want it to look like, and I hope you do it the way that I want you to. But ultimately, it takes a lot of courage and bravery for someone to just walk in the door and say, I'm ready to start working on myself. So short-term goals is just to be worthy of that trust that they're placing in us as a center. And then the long-term goals vary from person to person in terms of the things that they're wanting to work on. And yet ultimately we're hoping that they sustain sobriety from drugs and alcohol. We're hoping that they're able to to get a better sense of an authentic experience of self, to regulate their nervous system, to improve relationships with their loved ones, and to feel a greater sense of purpose in life day to day. So those might be some of the longer term goals.
Yeah, and just to add to that, as a sort of a contemplative framework, we have a teaching called The Farmer and the Cow, which guides people gently through a progressive schema of self-development. And typically when somebody is struggling with mental health and or addiction, underlying that, there's often a pattern, not necessarily conscious, but it's there nonetheless, of denial. And that is the first stage that we're often really working with. So we're working to bring people into greater awareness of their experience of life and what's true for them. And then there's a period of time where people need to go through a kind of experience of complying with things that they may or may not want to do, and do that rigorously enough and follow it consistently enough until it starts to feel really good and they can believe in it. And then that starts to look like the process of surrendering, and the heart then begins to open, and we move from trying to control everything in our mental tower to living from the heart space. And just on the other side of that is what we call the energies of celebration. And that's really a radical celebration that's coming from within. It's not because of circumstances outside or something that did or didn't happen in the world. It's happening inside of me now that I've become in alignment with the truth of my being, and I'm living from my heart space. And so ultimately, that's the far reaches of recovery, is that I rediscover and recover my true sense of self, and then that shines forth as a celebration of life.
Good luck to your goals, and looking forward for more success to both of you.
Thank you.
And what will
Yeah.
be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be a founders as well as advocating mental health?
Words of advice. I guess I would just encourage anybody that's wanting to step into a role of leadership, of service to others, that they also have, that they're being held accountable to the same degree of work that they're wanting to do for others. And so for Greg and I, both having our own mentors and our own communities that hold us accountable to the things that we're wanting to work on and grow through, I would encourage people that are wanting to get into the mental health field to really begin this exploration of looking at where they can work on their codependency issues, their control issues, their issues with dishonesty, deception, manipulation, denial, and they begin to work through those things because their own experience of healing is going to give them the best foundation on which to be of service to somebody else.
Yeah, I'll just add that to the extent that I can really be of service to someone, I have to have done that work within myself. And so if I truly want to be a great servant to people who are struggling with mental health and addiction challenges, then to the greatest extent that I can, I need to actually myself embody that recovery. I need to be a demonstration of that in action.
Thank you for that advice. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Yeah.
There's a few of them.
We're both, I think both of our lives have been really touched and transformed through the process of reading and studying and doing the Course in Miracles. So that's a spiritual psychological book that was channeled in the 70s by a clinical psychologist at Columbia University, and has become sort of a spiritual worldwide phenomenon. I think it's translated into many, many languages. And then the other book I would recommend, and I'll turn it over to Mike, is a literary classic that I think is an excellent, another wonderful way of learning about recovery indirectly. But that's Somerset Maugham's Of Human Bondage. And that really helps us see the impediments that we have, many of which are in our personality and our limitations and our compulsivity and all of that. And then the second part of that book, it's been many years, but is really this celebration of his forgiveness and his growth and transformation.
So as far as maybe some of the books, and I absolutely agree with Greg's recommendations as well. But I would suggest people take a look at the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So written by Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob. It's whether you are an alcoholic or not, it's a fantastic book. The first 164 pages are all just outlining the way that Alcoholics Anonymous works, how it was set up, and why it works the way that it does. And then the remainder of the book, the second half roughly, is personal stories of recovery. And then Marshall Rosenberg's book, Nonviolent Communication, is fantastic as an avenue for me to begin exploring how I observe the world, getting in touch with my feelings, noticing my needs, and finding the language to advocate for myself from a place of being more grounded on my side of the street, rather than trying to get people to do what I want or be the way that I want them to be. And then there's just a number of other books that we could certainly recommend, but I maybe offer those two as a couple of my favorites.
Thank you for that recommended books, both of you. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in 5th season, abstract poetry in 2nd season, and my book 101 review in 5th season too. Comedy 101 in 2nd season, and my food 101 in 5th season as well. Geography 101 in 4th season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101 Love Letters in 3rd season, and Movie 101 Review of Music 101 in its 4th season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its 1st season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. So, Mr. Greg and Mr. Michael, how does our personality affect our nervous system and immune function?
What nervous system, and what was the second
Immune function.
Oh, yeah. Oh gosh, it's there can be so much strain that comes from our shortcomings and the parts of our personality that haven't been smoothed out. And so typically, if we have these parts of ourselves that are really edgy or really critical of ourselves or of others, we tend to, our nervous system tends to function in a place of fight or flight, and even if we're unaware of it, there's a degree of tension that's built up in looking at life from that perspective. And I think a lot of times when we're really hostile with others in our mind, but not outwardly so, there's even a price to that, a psychological fear, because we're not feeling at ease with life around us. So for the nervous system, Mike was saying earlier, if I'm in that kind of place, I'm likely to have shallow breathing, my digestion, my things such as like my blood pressure, all of the vital functions in life that are governed through the automatic nervous system, those are going to tend to be hampered. And if we can shift over to what's called the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, then we move into rest and digest, and things start to flow again, and we start to feel that goodness in life. But that space is usually best held by a mindset or a personality that's kind, that's considerate, that's gentle, that's easeful. It's going to be easier for me to stay in an alpha state in my brain waves and in that space of I'm losing it, the nervous system, the parasympathetic. It'll be much easier for me to stay there and develop that calmness if I can hold to those qualities of a kind of a gentle and a warm personality.
And how does this perspective change how we should approach healthcare systemically?
Oh. Yeah, it's fascinating to think if there were courses
Hmm.
where people were really going through and sort of targeting some of the places, if they could see in real time the distress uh, that the way in which they're approaching life is causing them. I think we're getting closer to that day because everybody now has some type of biometric device,
Hmm.
and they're getting real-time feedback on HRV and all of these things. And I think the science is already there, like at the Heart Math Institute, they study that feelings like gratitude and well-being and acceptance and kindness, that all kinds of biological markers that are positive ensue when we can stay in that frame. And the converse is true as well. But I think the average public has yet to awaken to the significance of that. And in many cases, they're thinking that the problem is in the world, or the problem is in my genes, or the problem, um, who knows? But they may not yet be aware that the problem is more distinctly in themselves and their approaches to life, and that's something that can actually be worked on. There's so much hope in that.
So much hope indeed, Mr. Greg and Mr. Michael. What gives you hope about this approach to healing when so many feel stuck in a chronic illness?
Oh, I guess what gives me hope is just
Yeah.
having gone through the process myself. I mean, as someone who, identified with being hopeless and defective and unworthy and would never be able to change. I mean, so convinced of that. To see what can happen if I stay committed to this process of self-discovery and recovery and accountability, and to take suggestions even when I want to do something a different way, but really holding this awareness that the way that I have constructed my life has led me to a place that I'm saying I don't want to be anymore, and these people have something that I want more of in my life, was enough to keep me willing to take that feedback. And so what gives me hope is just knowing that that this process works, that people do get their lives back, that people do heal, people transform, and people come back to themselves in such a radically powerful way that it's one of the greatest experiences in life to see someone go through this journey, bringing all of their hangups and issues and dysfunction, as well as all of their bravery and curiosity, and get to a place where life is more than manageable but rewarding again.
Yeah, so rich. Yeah, I just want to say with Michael that my hope is also born of my personal experience. It's been extraordinary to go through the changes that I've gone through in my life, and then in the 7 years that Embodied Recovery's been open, there have been so many miracles of healing and transformation. And those give us hope. And in fact, those inspire us to do even more work. And then I just wanted to add in there, I don't think I named this in the talk, but it's very much mentioned in the 12 steps in recovery room, that resentment is like this really key part of our personality that we can hold on to. And you'll see people that, and I was like this for a number of years myself, you'll see that many individuals are 30, 40 years out, but they're living and reliving all of the jealousy, all of the hurt, all of the resentment, all of the anger. They haven't let it go. And sadly, the body is taking the toll of all of that. Even though the whatever occurred, however injurious it was many, many decades ago happened, it's gone. But because I'm keeping a mental artifact that I resent and think on and stew on, it really, really changes my physical disposition and my physical experience of life now. It's like I get to carry forward the poison with resentment. And so that's one of those cornerstones of the personality too that really needs a lot of work if we want to experience more fulfillment in life.
Yes, people, let it go, let it go. Mr. Greg and Mr. Michael, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And we are fully support you 100% on Book 101 review. And so, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or any projects that you're doing right now?
Absolutely, yeah. So if people want to find us, they can find us at embodiedrecovery.com. They can also find information about our talks through our sister organization. It's a nonprofit called Melos, and the website for that is meloscenter.org. So that's M as in Mary, ELOS center.org. We offer a monthly talk as well as the daily Sundal practice that people can check out, as well as a number of other events. So we're certainly accessible.
Yes, people, let's support their advocacy, because their advocacy is something else to make the world go round. So, Mr. Greg and Mr. Michael, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, what a delight.
Modicon people, see you soon.